Namaste everyone, welcome back to Suvi English channel. In today's video, I am going to discuss a very famous speech titled I Have a Dream, delivered by a very popular American leader Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was one of the most powerful activists and the leader of civil rights movement in America. He was also a political philosopher. He always fought against the racial discrimination in America. Through his peaceful and non-violent protests, he fought for the basic rights for the black Americans. In the year 1964, he was awarded with Nobel Peace Prize. And in the speech, I Have a Dream, he talks about his dream nation, his dream country where all the black Americans are treated equally. During 1950s and 60s, there was this racial discrimination. People were segregated based on the color of their skin. There was injustice, there was discrimination, there was ill treatment. Black Americans were treated as slaves and white Americans were treated as superiors. And Martin Luther King was one among the black Americans who suffered that injustice, who had that pain. So he wanted to raise his voice against this racial discrimination. So he started organizing the protests, rallies, and he started giving speeches. And this speech, I Have a Dream, was delivered in the year 1963 at Lincoln Memorial Hall, Washington. This speech became one of the most powerful speeches in the history of America. Nearly 250,000 people were present at Lincoln Memorial Hall to listen to the speech given by Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King began his speech by remembering the former president of America, Abraham Lincoln. Because Abraham Lincoln, when he was the president of America in 1863, he had recommended an amendment in its constitution and passed an order. The order was Emancipation Proclamation. According to that order, all men, all people in America, whether they were black Americans and white Americans, all people should be treated equally and there should not be any discrimination. There should not be any slavery. That was the order passed by Abraham Lincoln, then President of America. So Martin Luther King remembered the contribution of Abraham Lincoln, and in the speech he says that even after 100 years, when he was giving that speech, even after 100 years, that was 1963, that discrimination was still there, that racial discrimination, that segregation, injustice was still there. And in the speech, Martin Luther King says that it is a shameful condition to see segregation in America. In their constitution, it is mentioned, in the Constitution of America, it is mentioned that all the people, whether they are black Americans, white Americans, all the people should be treated equally. And it is also mentioned that all the black Americans, white Americans should be guaranteed, they are guaranteed with the basic rights. But that was not happening in America. Even after 100 years, before 1863, the slavery was there. Before 1863, the discrimination was there. But Abraham Lincoln in 1863 issued that Emancipation Proclamation. He issued an order that there should not be any slavery. So, but even after 100 years, that slavery was there, that discrimination was there, that segregation of people based on color was there, injustice was being done to the black Americans. So Martin Luther King was organizing all these rallies, protests, and through his speeches he was instilling some hopes in the minds of black Americans. He appealed to the people of America, especially black Americans, not to stop their protests until they got the justice. And he also appealed to the black Americans to conduct their protests with high discipline and dignity. And he also says that they should not develop any hatredness, or they should not develop any disrespect towards the white Americans, because there were many white Americans who were supporting Martin Luther King's ideologies. So he appealed to the people, he appealed to the black Americans to conduct their protests peacefully with non-violent tactics, with discipline, with dignity. And in the speech, Martin Luther King expressed his anguish and shared some of the painful incidents that the black Americans were experiencing. He talked about the police brutality. He says that the police were brutally killing the black Americans. They were torturing the black Americans because they were powerless, because they were slaves. And he also talked about what was happening in hotels. The black Americans were not being allowed to the hotels because of their color. He talked about that. He raised that issue in the speech. And he also talked about the signboards. Wherever the black Americans went, it may be park, it may be hotel, it may be cinema, wherever the black Americans went, there were signboards which always said only for whites. So because of those signboards, the black Americans were insulted. They had that they lost their dignity. And not only that, the black Americans were not given the voting power, voting rights. So because of all this, the leaders like Martin Luther King were organizing these kinds of protests. And in this speech, I Have a Dream, he talked about his dream. His dream was to see America where all the black Americans were treated equal to the white Americans. That was his dream. And his dream was to see the slave children and the children of slave owners, slave children and the children of slave owners sitting together and sharing their brotherhoodness and love. That should happen. So that was his dream. He wanted to see America where the slave children and the children of slave owners mingling together. So that was his dream. And his dream was also to see America where his four children, Martin Luther King had four children. He wanted to see his dream nation where his four children being judged not by their color but by their content of their character. So that was his dream. He had a dream. His dream was to see the people of America not being judged by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. That was his dream, and that should happen. And his dream was also to see America where the black boys, the black girls mingling with the white boys and the white girls. So that should happen. That was his dream. And his dream was also to see America, his great nation, his dream country, where all the children of God, Catholics, Protestants, Jews, black Americans, white Americans, he wanted to see all the people singing in their songs about the freedom. He wanted to see, he had a dream, and his dream was to see all the people singing that they had got the freedom at last. So that was his dream. And in this way, Martin Luther King shared his dreams with all the black Americans and instilled some hopes among all the people. So that's all about the speech I Have a Dream. Thank you.